It's my great pleasure tonight to introduce Sue Wood to the people who don't know her, but many of us do. Sue's title now is Horticultural Development Officer for North Yorkshire Council. That's quite a big mouthful. Not a big council. Sue has kindly helped the club in the past with the organisation of a wonderful flower display in Montpellier Gardens, celebrating our 100 years of Sir Optimist International. That was really special. Yeah. Tonight, Sue is talking about the New Zealand garden in Vally Gardens, which is being recorded for the benefits of our New Zealand friendship links in Wellington. We hope there'd be a few people on Zoom, but at the moment, it's very early in the morning. They haven't appeared. So, but we hope that they will do eventually. So over to you, Sue.
Thank you. Thank you very much, everyone. And thank you very much for inviting me this evening. Just maybe a little bit more about myself. I'm a Horticultural Development Officer for North Yorkshire Council at present. We are going through a restructure, so things could change in the next few months, but you never know. North Yorkshire is a very big county with 3,000 square miles. I think it takes about 2.5 hours to get from one side to the other. So it's proving challenging, shall we say, getting our heads around the whole locality. In my spare time, I am a little bit of a plantaholic. I judge for Yorkshire in Bloom. I've judged for Britain in Bloom for 11 years. And now I judge for the Windlesham Trophy, which is judging prison gardens, which is very, very interesting. Did go to Dartmoor the other year, and thankfully they do let me out as well. But what an austere building that was. Very, very interesting. I'm also on a Royal Horticultural Society committee, the Tender Ornamental Plant Committee, which is a bit of a mouthful, but proving very interesting, and lots of different visits as well. So various plant things that I get involved with, and I'm off to Chelsea next week for a couple of days to see the flower show, so looking forward to that. But I better get on with what I've come to talk about, the New Zealand garden in Vally Gardens. I assume you all know it. Good. I won't need to tell you too much then. That's good. And I think we'll just move on to the next slide, please. I'm not quite used to this, having someone else to do my, usually have a little fun. So welcome to everyone, and we'll move on, I think. I'm afraid, yeah, I'll just talk about, obviously, the 23 New Zealand airmen stationed, that were stationed locally. They're down in Stonefall Cemetery, which is the largest cemetery in the north of England. And we're very fortunate, obviously, to have the Commonwealth War Graves Commission, who has 850 horticulturalists who are responsible for the maintenance and gardening of more than 2,400 sites across 50 countries. I'm sure we're all indebted to them. I think we'll move on, thank you. These are just a couple of slides of the different New Zealand airmen. This gentleman's from Wellington, and I'll explain about that in a little while. And the next slide, please. Another one. This was, I think, Neil Burgess, a navigator in the Royal New Zealand Air Force. And the next slide, please. This gives you a list of all the New Zealand airmen that are interred in Stonefall Cemetery. And 5 of them are from Wellington. And I'll just pick on the next slide a little bit about them. Obviously, you can see how young they were all, 21, 25 years. I think the oldest one is 27. I don't know how old Francis was, but that's no age at all, is it? Some emigrated from England, and one, Terence McKinley, was awarded the Distinguished Flying Cross, so all very brave men. So this is the reason why the New Zealand garden came to be in the Valley Gardens because of the links with the New Zealand airmen.
I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. No, we'll stay there. Thank you. So, as a result of a visit by the mayor at the time, Sir Bernard Lomas Walker, early in 1953, he realised that Wellington didn't have a mace. So they decided to present the city of Wellington with a replica of Harrogate's own mace, which was made by Ogden's on James Street. And it shows the actual council motive of on one side and the city of Wellington on the other. It's a silver gilt mace, and it was gifted to commemorate the Festival of Britain and also as a token of appreciation for the generous help given to Britain by New Zealand during and since the war. So that was sort of some of the start of the exchanges. I think there were a couple of paintings were given, one from New Zealand and one from Harrogate again. And then the next phase, if we could have the next slide, they decided to create a memorial garden in Harrogate. And this gentleman, Mr. W.V. Bishop, he was known as W.V. By everyone. He was the superintendent just after the war up until 1972, and he was charged with the project. Plants were grown in New Zealand and then shipped over from New Zealand to England on the Dominion Monarch, which arrived in March 1953. And seeds had also been dispatched from Christchurch Botanical Gardens, and they were propagated up at the Harlowville nurseries. And to complete the garden, a flagpole was provided to fly the New Zealand flag. Thank you. Now, I'm afraid there aren't too many pictures of the garden when it was planted in 1953. I couldn't seem to find too much in our archive, but this is a newspaper cutting showing the opening on the 21st of June, 1945 by Deputy Mayor of Wellington, Councillor E.R. Topp, and the Mayor of Harrogate, Don Christelow. And it was Don Christelow's idea, I think, of actually doing the town twinning. He was instigated several of the town twinnings with Luchon and Monty Catini. And if anyone knows or remembers him, I think there's Neville Knox, the clerk in the back. That was a name to remember, wasn't it? Thank you. So when the plants were sent over, they were sent over with Maori names, which did prove a little bit challenging. I don't think anybody really knew a lot of Maori. So I think it was a little bit hit and miss of where some plants should be planted to get the best out of them. I don't think they really exactly knew what they were getting. So as you can see, the apparently mako, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, is a wineberry. So it's not something you'd really maybe come across, mako, but it seemed to come to pass. They seemed to get it right, but unfortunately there aren't really too many photographs of it. So the other thing I think with the New Zealand garden, the plants, it's a lovely idea, but obviously New Zealand has a much better climate than we do, and nobody's told the plants that they're in Harrogate, and they don't really like it. They decided to, some of them, curl up their toes and die, really. So over the years, they have failed, unfortunately, which is a shame because it's a lovely idea, but they don't really like this cold, wet soil and the frozen temperatures that we sometimes get. So I'm sure it's a lot warmer in New Zealand. I haven't been just yet, but you never know. So we'll move on to the next slide. This is showing the garden a little bit more mature. This is 1960 in June, when the Mayor of Wellington came over for a visit. He was Councillor Frank Kitts. So you can see that with a bit of tender loving care, it was all starting to mature quite nicely. Next slide, please. He came with Mr. Hunt OBE, who was from the Central Office of Information, and Mr. Bishop's just there. That's the Park Superintendent, WV, and the Mayor of Harrogate at the time was Councillor Roberts. So that shows you the garden maturing quite nicely, and also the flagpole just on the right-hand side, with the flag flying, of course. Thank you. So as I said, over the years, some of the plants have died and had to be replaced, but I don't think they really concentrated on New Zealand plants. I think it was almost what would survive in some of the, if you're gardeners, you'll know the Harrogate clay is a bit of a challenging sort of substance, not the easiest thing to deal with. So they were replaced, and not exactly sort of all New Zealand related plants. Thank you, Val.